Great to be with you today. Merry Christmas. Welcome in. The telephone number, 610-850-0990. 610-850-0990. We're online at 990theanswer.com. Out there in Montgomery County, by the way, you know the next governor of Pennsylvania hails from Montgomery County. I haven't talked with Joe Gale about that. I wonder what he thinks about it. He's a commissioner in Montgomery County, the only sane one, the only conservative one, the only Republican one. And as usual, when Joe makes news, it's because he's in opposition to the insane way the county's being operated. And joins us again on that front. Joe, first of all, welcome back and Merry Christmas. Glad you could make time for us today. Hi.
Merry Christmas, Chris. I'm grateful for the opportunity.
Let me ask you about the election. I haven't really talked with you post-midterms. The fact that this former Montgomery County commissioner himself, Josh Shapiro, our current attorney general and now governor-elect, the fact that that guy has managed to coast, and I mean literally coast, to the governor's mansion. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Now, you're a commissioner there, and you live in that backyard. I have been told ever since I got to Philadelphia that Josh Shapiro and the politics of Montgomery County have insulated him to such a degree he's untouchable. It seems that's true. Is that what we watched? I mean, it's remarkable, really.
It truly is remarkable. So ever since Josh Shapiro was elected Montgomery County Commissioner back in 2011, I believe from that moment on, the aspirations for governor were in the making. And I've even had conversations. At this point, I cut off the Republican establishment swamp totally. But back in the day, conversations with people active in the local Republican Party who would tell me years ago, Josh Shapiro is going to be the governor soon. And they were supportive of that idea. So Josh Shapiro has done an excellent job from the beginning of brokering deals with Republican Party bosses and insiders where to the point he goes unscathed. And 2022 in the midterms was interesting because you had an open gubernatorial seat. Tom Wolf was termed out. So you think there would be more interest amongst Democrats around the state to run for that open gubernatorial seat in a state that's considered to be purple or leaning blue. And Josh Shapiro went uncontested in the primary with no challenge. So he coasted through the primary. He actually spent millions of dollars helping Doug Mastriano win the Republican nomination. He spent his own money, didn't hide behind it. It was paid for by Shapiro for governor with ads that helped Mastriano on television, radio, mail. Engineered the entire race where it was a crowded 9-way primary field so Mastriano would win the nomination because he knew he was easy to beat in the general election come November. And I tried connecting all these dots for people on the campaign trail when I was running for governor, and it all came true. So sadly, we squandered a prime opportunity and what was supposed to be a red wave. I was never buying into the hype of a red wave. Or after the disastrous lockdowns and shutdowns we had under Governor Wolf, Pennsylvania now has another liberal governor. And Josh Shapiro is as corrupt as they come. He's the king of pay-to-play politics. Every decision he makes is a kickback to his donors and the people that made him and create him, but no one does it better. The fact that he has two parties to aid him and stand by his side is remarkable. And now you see it with his transition committee as he becomes the next governor. There's many Republican swamp creatures that are part of his transition committee. They'll be in his cabinet at the inauguration, and that's how he operates. But the public's not aware of it because no one else talks about this. I seem to be the only public official out there talking about the corruption and collusion revolving around Josh Shapiro.
It's true. I 100% agree that you are, and I can verify that as somebody who has covered this for quite a while and watched it from afar. I mean, you've been hip deep in it, and you have constantly cried foul on Josh Shapiro's movements, but nobody else. I mean, there is no media. None. There was no scrutiny. There was no demands for debate. There was no, as you say, no Democrat challenge. Seems like a lot of Republicans were clearly interested in being helpful to him. And I even read before the election, the Inquirer already opining out loud, could Josh Shapiro be headed to Pennsylvania Avenue? I mean, they already have visions of his presidency in their heads. He hasn't even made it to the governor's mansion yet.
Yeah, there's speculation about President next. It's really remarkable. And it's unfortunate because I believe that I was a candidate positioned in a statewide race to actually defeat Josh Shapiro in a general election because I have the geographic advantage of coming from his home turf. And it's the primary races that become a challenge because, unfortunately, there's a lot of conservatives that always want to hear the narrative, Republicans good, Democrats bad. And then I come along and say, wait a minute, they're all bad. This is why. This is the collusion. I name the names. And I've never seen such a corrupt state. Pennsylvania is full of that collusion and corruption. And now with Shapiro as governor, it's going to be a gravy train with all them getting rich off our tax dollars.
You're an interesting guy because you're honest and you're not afraid to – you don't pull any punches with either party. And I think you have a pretty fair assessment of the politics of Pennsylvania generally. So let me ask you, now that we know that we're talking about – unfortunately, we don't like it. We don't like Act 77. You've spoken out about it a lot. But it is the law. Here it is, and we're stuck with it. So do you agree that we now have to strategically start talking about ballot collection up to almost 2 months prior to Election Day? This focus on turnout on Election Day is no longer working for Republicans. Do you assess it the same way?
Well, this is the problem with that theory. Pennsylvania is still a Democrat state with voter registration. So that being said, it's becoming more Republican since Trump first won in 2016. There's been a trend where you see a decrease in Democrat registration, an increase in Republican registration. However, that's not in the Philadelphia suburbs. The Philadelphia suburbs increasingly become more and more Democrat. You see that trend happening more in western Pennsylvania. But as long as you have more Democrats registered, and the Democrats have a plan to have inactive Democrats that typically don't vote, to vote by mail, we still don't have that edge to win statewide elections or top of the ticket races. So I'm not optimistic about the future for the Republican Party in Pennsylvania and also the next presidential election because it comes down to a handful of swing states, and the swing states have election laws similar to Act 77. Now, Act 77 here in Pennsylvania is the worst in the country because we have 50 days of no excuse mail-in voting. That's the longest vote-by-mail period of time in the entire country. So to give you an idea, before the Oz and Fetterman Senate debate, over 1 million people in Pennsylvania already voted by mail. So it's not getting fixed. The Republicans unanimously passed that unconstitutional, disastrous legislation in 2019 prior to the pandemic, had nothing to do with COVID. And now that Shapiro's there, he's not going to fix it. And this is my prediction, Chris. I believe you will see Shapiro come forward with a compromise with Republicans in the state Senate, and it'll be voter ID. Where look at me, I'm restoring faith in the integrity of our elections by implementing voter ID. But what good is voter ID? Now, I'm all in favor of that. But what good is it if you're voting by mail? No one's checking your ID. So the root of all these problems is no excuse mail-in voting. The blood is on the hands of the bad, ineffective Republicans we have in Harrisburg, and I don't see it being fixed anytime soon. So even if we play that game of chasing mail-in ballots, we still have a deficit in registration, and things don't look good. And I'm doing my best I can to educate the public on how to get things right here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and again, I don't disagree with any of your assessment, but being that it won't change, Dick Morris once said to me, Republicans have our couch potatoes too. Now, Democrats have the advantage that you can just walk onto a college campus and herd Democrat votes. Republicans don't have such a strategic, there's not a pool to fish in, generally,
exactly.
where Republicans are organized.
Highly urbanized areas, highly densely populated areas is where the Democrat registration strongholds are. And if you have an operation in place where you're getting inactive Democrats to vote there, you have a plan to succeed. And they're executing on it, and it's all been enabled by the Republicans.
But you're saying you don't think Republicans have a population like that to go find?
I don't think they do. I think most of our voters come out and vote in person. That's why I encourage my supporters to do. I believe that's the most secure way to cast your ballot is in person. And the Democrats are just taking advantage of the no excuse mail-in voting laws. So it's really screwed up. And the fact that we nominated someone for governor is, I called him Doug Mail-in Mastriano, that voted for that garbage legislation, took the hot issue off the table. And throughout the campaign, if Shapiro was asked, again, he was only thrown softballs by the media about mail-in voting or election integrity, his answer was, well, the Republicans, including my opponent, unanimously passed this law. So it was
which is
really
not inaccurate.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it is very frustrating. Joe Gale is Montgomery County Commissioner, Republican, the only one of the three. The other two, you've been making news here recently, and I read this from mainlinemedianews.com. Montgomery County Commissioners debate 2023 budget at final board meeting. This is dated the 19th yesterday. And one of your big objections, and you've written an open letter to the Director of Human Resources for the county, recently a salary increase for elected officials has been passed, and you wrote a letter saying, I hereby waive the right to a 12% salary increase. What's your objection?
Well, this is what happens when the taxpayers have face consequences, when elected officials have no political consequences. So Montgomery County has become such a strong Democrat stronghold here that the Democrat Montgomery County commissioners can increase their own salary and the salary of county elected officials by 12%, and at the same time raise county property taxes 3 consecutive years in a row and get away with it with zero political consequences. That's how Democrat Montgomery County has become. And it frustrates me because it's not fair to the hardworking families out there that are struggling with inflation, high gas prices, high food prices, to pay higher real estate taxes 3 years in a row. Yet the county commissioners, myself excluded, as you mentioned, I'm not accepting the increase, a 12% increase. And then county employees, which we have about 3,000 county employees, the non-contractual ones, are getting a 4% increase. So there's many county employees upset with their greediness. And I think you're going to see more collective bargaining, more unionizing within the county departments. That's going to lead to further costs for the taxpayers. So it's a downward slope that we're on. But it goes to show you their true intentions. They're selfish. They're greedy. They milk the taxpayers dry. And all they have to do, they can continue to increase spending as long as they can increase taxes. And the fact that they can get away with it is crazy. Now, if it weren't for me being there, kicking and screaming and exposing all this, that 12% salary increase would probably be a 20% salary increase. So what's happened over the years in Philadelphia, where it's a Democrat-controlled stronghold with no consequences, is now happening in the Philadelphia suburbs. And I blame it on weak Republicans over the years that never had a backbone. And at the same time, they're in it for the same reasons as the Democrat establishment. They want to get rich off our tax dollars. And the Republican establishment realizes that the suburbs are now Democrat, and they just want to be able to make deals for crumbs. Throw me the scraps, get my buddy in this law firm, this solicitorship, this legal contract, this road work, this engineering work. It's a big business. And I, again, expose it. I talk about it. That's why I upset all the right people. And it's a shame that the taxpayers are the ones to suffer.
Yeah, you have a governor who still calls Montgomery County home now. You must feel a bit lonely. I mean, it must be increasingly more, not that you haven't been in good company for a while in political office in Montgomery County, but to have the next sitting governor from your county, and a Democrat at that, he's quite a hero. I mean, they'll probably erect a statue to Josh Shapiro somewhere in Montgomery County Town Square, won't they? County
right,
seat?
Or name a building after him. But I'll say it again, Chris, the Republicans have a very cozy relationship with him, and he still has a lot of tentacles in Montgomery County government.
Oh,
and
yes.
I'll tell you why that's significant. The county commissioner position here is a 3-member board. Again, I'm the minority. I'm outnumbered 2-1. But we oversee a massive budget. To give you an idea, the operating budget in 2023 in Montgomery County is $530 million. And then aside from that is a capital budget for construction projects. That's $270 million in 2023. So if you combine that, that's $800 million that the three of us are allocating. And if you're the majority overseeing that, you're dishing that out to a lot of the vendors looking for a kickback. And that's how politics works. That's how government works. It's wrong. And I do the best I can to disrupt that status quo. But again, when I disrupt the status quo, I upset the bad Republicans who want a piece of that action. And that's what I think it's important for your listeners to be aware of. Like I said, they're all friends behind the scenes. These big law firms have a partner in the law firm that's the Democrat Party chair, the Republican Party chair, So at the end of the day, they don't care who's in power. They can grease whoever they have to grease to rake in that business. And it's important that we start holding them accountable the best we can.
Joe, do you still have a means of communication with folks if they want to reach out?
Yes, joegale.com is the best way to get a hold of me. I encourage your listeners to visit joegale.com. Right on my splash page, you'll see a video of this special meeting. First time in 7 years I've been in office as commissioner we ever had a special meeting where the other two commissioners increased their own salary. I highly encourage they watch this video, and you'll get an idea of how smug they are in reaction to me fighting against it because they know they can get away with it. But their blood pressure will go up, so full disclosure on that. You will get frustrated if you watch this video. But that's the best way to get a hold of me is joegale.com.
Joe, always a pleasure. We appreciate your fight and your constant. I mean, you're the canary in the coal mine. You have been for years. You continue to be. Thanks for your work out there. Merry Christmas to you and the Gale family.
It's an honor to be a voice for the voiceless. To the conservatives out here that feel outnumbered, I hear you, and I do my best to be a solid voice for you. And I'd like to thank you, Chris, for what you do on the air 3 hours a day, every day, to be a voice for us as well. And I wish you a healthy and happy new year. Thank
you, Joe. Merry Christmas.
You're welcome.
Telephone number 610-850-0990. 610-850-0990. We're online at 990theanswer.com.